Now, Arab leaders are gathering in Saudi Arabia today to hammer out how to collectively counter President Donald Trump's plan for US control of Gaza and the expulsion of its inhabitants. Leaders in the Arab world have criticised Trump's plans to empty the Strip and create a so-called Levantine Riviera, but now they want to agree on a formulated response. And for more on this, I can bring in Scott Lucas, Professor of US and International Politics at the Clinton Institute at the University College Dublin. Good morning, Scott, and thank you for joining us. At this meeting in Riyadh, is there a sense of panic among Arab leaders after Donald Trump's announcement?
There's a sense of deep concern, not just amongst Arab leaders, but I think it's amongst almost everyone in the region, not just about Trump's proposal for ethnic cleansing of Gaza, but about the imminent end of phase one of the ceasefire agreement. Because, of course, at the end of phase one, you need to have a phase two. So while the Arab leaders are preparing for this March 4th summit, which will be about reconstruction of Gaza, while its residents remain there and are not transferred, to get that reconstruction, you've got to get agreement on a phase two in which Israel withdraws its forces from the Strip and you get some type of Palestinian governance. Now, will that governance be by Hamas? Will it be by other Palestinian groups? Will it be a technocratic administration? All of that is very, very much up in the air because, of course, I think the chances are slim that the Netanyahu government, under pressure from the hard right, will even agree to a phase two at this point, unless Hamas effectively says it's going to disappear, which, of course, the group will not do.
Now, Trump has said that the likes of Jordan and Egypt will agree to the, quote, deal. Now, what sort of leverage can Trump exert on Arab countries, and are some a little bit more protected from leverage than others?
Well, I mean, Trump, as always, has gone to the fact that he could sanction. I can sanction this, I can sanction that. And certainly, there is trade between Egypt and Jordan with the United States. Even more significantly, of course, would be trade between the Gulf states and the U.S., including, of course, the U.S. provision of military trade. But at this point, Trump hasn't really followed up on that threat to impose sanctions. I think what you're going to see from Trump is not going to be direct assaults on Jordan and on Egypt. I think what you're going to see is increased Trump administration support of Israel. And I think that's not only effectively giving a blank check for renewed Israeli military attacks in Gaza. I think it's going to be for expanded, not just Israeli attacks in the West Bank, but really expanded Israeli occupation in the West Bank, including an expansion of the settlements. That's the front I would be watching right now in terms of where Israel tries to take advantage of Trump's position.
And just on that point, Trump's plan, obviously it's got a lot of support from Benjamin Netanyahu and far-right elements in his government. But what about across the political spectrum in Israel? And particularly, what happens if Netanyahu's government falls, as it well might in the next year or two? Would a new government take Trump up on the offer?
We're now in the key, I think, aspect of this. As important as the U.S. is and as loud as Trump is, it's this question of what has been happening in Israel domestically throughout the period since the Hamas attacks on October 7th and then Israel's mass killing. Benjamin Netanyahu is caught between the hard right ministers, the finance minister, Mr. Smotrich, who's still in government, the national security minister, Mr. Ben-Gvir, who has left but is still supporting, who have said we don't want a phase two. And in fact, we want Gazans to voluntarily leave the Strip and we want a military government. Netanyahu's caught between that demand and between many Israelis, including families of the hostages, who say the priority is to get the remaining 70 to 75 hostages back and not to renew military attacks. Meanwhile, Netanyahu faces that prospect you've alluded to. If there is a lasting ceasefire, his political future is uncertain with elections, and his legal future is uncertain with, I think, renewed impetus for the bribery trial that he is facing.
Now, will Arab leaders be also concerned about a domestic backlash from their own populations if they were seen to capitulate and be viewed as selling out the people of Gaza if they did do a deal with Trump?
I think that domestic factor is there. And here I'm going to have to pull you back. the idea that Trump has a thought out proposal on ethnic cleansing is it's just ridiculous. This isn't a thought out proposal. It's his honest wish to make money out of Gaza, backed up by a US professor who said, let's start from scratch and remove everything, including the rubble and the people. That's all you've got there. So there's no real plan that the Americans have. Arab leaders, however, have to go back when they face domestic populations and face something I think more significant, which is, will they go back to normalizing relations with Israel? That's where we were before October 2023. That's where we had some states who had established relations with Israel, others behind the scenes like Saudi Arabia who were maneuvering for closer links. That doesn't happen now. No matter how much Trump puts on pressure, no matter how much he schemes, you do not get normalization of Israel's relations with Gulf states until you get a lasting ceasefire in Gaza. That's been made clear by the Saudis. It's been made clear by other Gulf states, even if the Trump folks won't publicly accept it.
And with regard to Europe, where is Europe in all this? Because we've seen in the last week that probably the era of military cooperation between the United States and Europe is perhaps on its last legs. Is there a possibility that we've already seen the European countries have expressed discontent with these comments by Trump? Is there a possibility that there might begin to become a little bit of a cleavage between Europe and Washington on Israel and the Middle East itself?
Well, I mean, there's already a bit of distance between some EU members and the United States over, the Israeli open-ended attacks in Gaza until they were suspended because of the ceasefire. Where I am in Ireland, for example, that's one of the European countries that has come out forcefully for the two-state solution and recognition of Palestine. It has criticized Israel over the mass killings. But I think the broader issue is this, and I'm going to say this with reference to what is happening over Ukraine and Russia. For the first time since 1941, there is no alliance between a US government and European countries. The Trump administration has ended that alliance. I don't think it's going to have that much effect on the Middle East at this point, simply because European countries have got to give emergency attention to support of Ukraine and of their security against Russia's 3-year invasion. And while that issue is paramount, I think the Europeans are going to be on the sideline regarding Middle East issues.
Thank you very much for that, Scott Lucas, Professor of US and International Politics at the Clinton Institute at University College Dublin.